Okay, so this video is going to be with circle graphs, and circle graph is going to display data as parts of a whole. Let me get these papers out of the way. There we go. So it's going to display data as parts of a whole. In a circle graph, the percents have to add up to 100 since the graph is like the whole amount of data. So for example, Miss Gardner surveyed 250 students, that would be the total, about why they didn't have their homework to turn in. So here are the responses. 26% said they had a sudden illness. So they had the chickenpox last night. 14% natural disaster took away that homework. Technical difficulties, 17%. You couldn't find that pencil. It was the teacher's fault. Of course, it was my fault, so that's 20%. And then you had a pet problem, so that's 23%. So if you add up all of these numbers, 23, 26, 20, 17, and 14, that's 10, that's 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. It adds up to 100%. From there, we can use that to do a proportion to figure out how many actual students said what. So it says, number 1, there's 4 questions. Here's number 1. A total of 250 students were surveyed. How many more students said it was the teacher's fault compared to natural disaster? Well, let's figure out here. The teacher's fault was 20%. Out of 100% would be how many students out of 250? Well, what I would say is, okay, from 100 to 250, you're going to be timesing by 2.5. So let's just do 20 times 2.5. When I do 20 times 2.5, should be 50. So 20% is going to add up to 50 kids. Okay. Then it was talking about natural disaster. So the natural disaster was 14% out of 100. So how many kids would that be out of 250 kids? Same thing, times 2.5. So 14 times 2.5. 2 times 4 is 8, 2, that'd be 35. So 35 kids said that it was a natural disaster. So how many more kids is that? It's 15 kids. Or students. You also could have just done 20% minus 14% and got 6%, and then set it up 6% out of 100% is what over 250 kids. Okay, next question. What fraction of students said they couldn't turn in their homework because of a sudden illness? So you had 26% out of 100. All you have to do is simplify. That's your fraction. Divide by 2, which would be 13. Divide by 2, which is 50. 13 over 50 is the fraction. So basically 13 students said they had a sudden illness out of 50 students total. A total of 250 students were surveyed. How many more total students said it was a pet problem compared to technical difficulties? So now I'm going to work this out the other way compared to number 1. So pet problem and then technical difficulties. Pet problem was 23% and technical difficulties was 17%. So it says how many more, so I'm just going to subtract that. And 23 minus 17 would be 6%. So 6% out of 100% would be how many students out of 250 students? Once again, multiply by 2.5. 6 times 2.5 would be 15. So it'd be 15 students. So what that means is there's 15 more students that said that there was a pet problem compared to a technical difficulty. Last one. What fractions of students said they couldn't turn in their homework because it was the teacher's fault? So you go to the graph, 20% said that it was the teacher's fault, and you know the circle graph, it's all out of 100%. So right there, divide by 10, cross out a 0. So now it's 2/10. Simplify that. Be 1/5. So 1/5 of the people surveyed said it was their teacher's fault. So one kid out of every 5 kids would say it was their teacher's fault. So there you go. There's some circle graphs. Make sure you get this video done before Monday so you can do the activity with the Skittles.